So Al-Ilah means the only one that can be worshipped, the only one of worship. There is no other deity that should be worshipped. Not Jesus, not Muhammad, not no Saint Paul. The only one that can be worshipped is that. Know that messengers were sent speaking different languages. Like Abraham, obviously, he's not from the Aramaic people. Later, right? Event, Moses speaking Hebrew, right? So he's going to refer to God in his language. Jesus speaking Aramaic is going to refer to God in his language, right?
Or you can even go back to the confusion of the languages at like the Tower of Babel.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And then you could go to Adam, right? You could go to Eve. You could go to exactly. And that's the funny thing when you get these evangelicals, Jesus, you tell them that's not even his name. I mean, if you look at his mom didn't name him English and translated. I'm not criticizing, but when people get so freaked out, but they don't even know how did Jesus pray. For example, in the Bible, and you guys are well versed, Jesus put his forehead on the ground, prayed to God. That as Muslims, right? We stick very closely to the way of the prophets. We don't innovate. We don't celebrate Christmas. We don't celebrate the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. Why? Because they didn't teach us. But now, except you guys, so I'm giving you some credit. Every Christian church that I went to, and I went to, as I said, I've been to almost every type. They celebrate Christmas. They have Santa Claus. What does Santa Claus do with Jesus? Gifts and reindeer and eggnog, all this pagan Saturnalia stuff, right? Easter and the bunny. Where did the bunny come from? Look at the history behind it, and you realize the church had corrupted all of this, right? But
and what does the word Allah mean?
Exactly. So it's a very interesting question. Anything that can be worshipped. So Al-Ilah means the only one that can be worshipped, the only one that deserves to be worshipped, the only one worthy of worship. There is no other deity that should be worshipped. Not Jesus, not Muhammad, not idol, no saints, no Saint Peter, no Saint Paul. The only one that can be worshipped is that messengers were sent speaking. He didn't speak Arabic. He didn't speak even Hebrew. He's not Aramaic people. Later, right?
He comes to you. He starts talking to you, making you be in the salah. What is the sunnah? Lightly to the left. Some brothers who are trying to follow sunnah and they want to follow the deen. You see him doing spitting like that. When you spit to the left 3 times without changing yourself from the qibla. There you go. Just constantly fight yourself off. Why? The actions. He says that the person is going to pray and he's going to finish the entire prayer and he only has only 10 of his salah is accepted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يقبل إلا عشر صلاته لا يقبل شيء ثاني. Allah doesn't accept anything else. Only 10. Because that 10 is how much he had to show in the prayer. And some people, some of them all until they get to it, some of them the one who constantly is trying to concentrate on the salah. Other thoughts come to him, he says, A'udhu billahi minash. It's from God to Moses.
So exactly what you said. You said it's not from Jesus, it's from God to Moses. So what you just said shows Jesus is not God. I said Jesus is the Son of God. I just want to agree with this. I don't believe it. I'm really okay, but I just believe this was all God. What? Agree.
But it also says, how many Father, the Son, Spirit, they are God.
Where does it say that? Where in the scripture? That's the Holy Spirit to show you. Google spirit. Person. There you go. There are three that bear quick record in heaven. The Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit. And these three are three. Okay. I got you. So let's think of the God's side. The Word, the Holy Spirit, there's three people. Okay. Because I got you. I got you. So check this out. I do not think to be alone. The most of us will need to be to I and you. And they all need to be one in us. Yeah. So yes. All those that are come are one with God in the same way that Jesus said, the same way me and you are one. That means you are not God. That means you, as a follower of God, have the same message that God said. And I believe that. Jesus brought the message of God. He is God. Right? You think so? You know that. I know. But when you said he's the son of God, how many sons of God?
There are numerous miracles of the Prophet Muhammad. There are numerous miracles of the Prophet Muhammad. Sorry, you've asked me. I will, no problem. I'll let you know. So there are numerous miracles that were done by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, the Quran is a living miracle that has been given to the Muslims that we can evidence, we can prove, and we can have a conversation. What is the miracle? The splitting of the moon. The splitting of the moon. You told me the sea split. What do you classify as miracles? I'll answer your question. So you mentioned a miracle of Moses that Moses did. Then you mentioned a miracle of Jesus that Jesus did. There are numerous miracles of the Prophet Muhammad that Allah peace be upon him, grant his name. So you've asked me, I'm answering. There is in the Quran actually. I will tell you eventually. So there are numerous miracles that were done by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, the Quran is a living miracle that has been given to the Muslims that we can evidence and we can prove and we can have a conversation about. But go ahead about the miracles.
So you're telling there is a miracle.
The splitting of the moon. The splitting of the moon.
When you see the Muslim over there.
Don't you see the sea is still together?
Hello, sister. Would you like a free coffee? It's fine. It says only in the remembrance of God you will find peace. So we believe that only in the remembrance of God and having a relationship with God is where you will find peace in life. So I'll give you one of these. What's your name? So nice to meet you. No. You have it. Okay, that's good.
Actually, a bounty of God that God has bestowed upon them. Whichever amount of suffering that they go through in this life, which is very minimal, is not equal to an eternal, never-ending life of happiness. We have a tradition in Islam where the Prophet tells us that the man who suffered the most on earth in this life, the man who now you can imagine suffer the most means what? Like in this life, bro, lost. Just like go with your imagination as well as it gets. And the Prophet tells us when into paradise and taken out, Allah will ask him, have you seen any difficulty? And then he will say, oh, by you, God, I've not seen any difficulty. Why would say that? Because obviously the bounties and the rewards that he will see is going to make him forget everything. And we're talking about the person who suffered the most in this life. So if these children go to paradise, then in this reality, this is a bounty and a blessing that God bestows upon them. But in the same time, it's a test. It's a test for who? It's a test for their family, who will have to now live after they have had the loss in their life. It's a test for their community around them. It's a test for the reason how they died. If someone had a cause, had an influence on their death. So what you've presented is already answered by what I said. The fact that this life is a test responds to everything you just said.
Is this just that fetuses die, that kids die? Is this something that Muslims would call just?
Sure. Kind of taking away the other response I gave and repeated the question again. If this life is a test, then by definition there will be difficulties and there will be suffering. Allah in the Quran promises us as believers that we will have suffering. We'll have loss of life, loss of wealth, we'll have diseases, we'll have difficulties in our life. We are just in reality living in a world, and as Muslims we are really understanding why we go through difficulties. Because if there's no difficulties, there's no test. Now we talk about children dying, for example. We from our Islamic worldview
saying why Islam. There's clear signs. There's evidences, miracles. You understand, man? I come from Christianity. Catholicism, especially, we're very, very stringent. Us as Muslims, we believe in all the prophets. You cannot believe in one and disbelieve in the other. God only sent Jesus to call to God. So basically, what we're doing, same thing. Oh, so it's just sort of not the line. Yeah, just prophet after prophet. Every time God sent a prophet, it was for different times. Would there be a new prophet coming? No, there's no prophet. Prophet Muhammad was the one and last messenger. I didn't know that. That's interesting. God says, we have certainly sent down a book which is your mention, so we know his reason. Then God says, no mention comes to them anew from their Lord except that they heedlessly turn away with their hearts distracted.
Why do you follow Muhammad when he was a sinner? And how was he a sinner? What did he sin? Because he did a lot of sin. What sin? Name one. Hold on. Everybody, let me talk. Name one. Is Muhammad? Name one. No. Name one. Name a sin. Multiple wives. That's a sin? That is a sin. What? Why is that a sin? Because God, you don't have multiple wives in the Bible. Yeah. Bible. Yeah. Show me where it says that. No. Hold on. Show me a sin. That is a sin. Why is it a sin? It is a sin. Why is it a sin? Because that's not how God created man. Where did it say that in the Bible? It's a God sin. Created man, and he never said you can have. Show me. Are you saying that? Show me in the Bible. Yes, you can have multiple wives. Of course you can. Of course you can. Show me in the Bible where it says you cannot have multiple wives. Was David a prophet of God? Give him many ideas. Better than having a husband, right? But was David a prophet? David was a man after God's own heart, yeah. And did he have multiple wives? Yeah. Why do you follow Muhammad when he was a sinner? And how was he a sinner? What did he sin? Because he did a lot of sin. What sin? Name one. Hold on. Everybody, let me talk. Name one. Is Muhammad? Name one. No. Name one.